Hi everybody. The project that I was going to present today in the CME is a poster that I submitted to the Innovations in Medical Education conference by the University of Southern California earlier this year, but obviously it was held virtually, so there was no travel involved. Unfortunately, I realised too late that I am actually on ICU nights, but speaking to Ross about it, it is still a really nice thing to be able to share this with the department because a huge number of trainees have been involved in this work over the course of the year. So it didn't seem a huge jump to pre-record this, given that the topic I'll be discussing is our use of online digital learning and video production to change the way that we're delivering teaching to medical students in light of COVID. So the poster itself was titled Textbook Wisdom for the YouTube Age, How We Are Learning to Teach Modern Remote Learners. Now the premise of this is that at the beginning of 2020, as we all remember, our entire lives moved online and there was a real rush to get all of our tutorials, simulation sessions, revision sessions, Q&A sessions suitable to be used in an online format as quickly as possible. The easiest thing to do would be to expand what we'd done before, which was having PowerPoint presentations that were narrated by voice and then put either on YouTube or on my MBCHB. The problem with that is, as students are spending more and more time online, they would be exposed to hours and hours and hours of death by PowerPoint. And we already know from medical education literature that that's not the best way to teach people. There are huge inherent advantages in online learning, and the ability to have your content produced and edited and to the point of finesse. So students don't need to spend time listening to ums and ahs, and if something was difficult they can just rewind it and watch it again. So it all began with a conversation with Jill Austin talking about the Year 4 tutorials that we were delivering and actually could we make them better? Could we make it more like something that students want to watch anyway? The Year 4 curriculum is based on a flipped classroom model when students come through anaesthesia teaching. That means we deliver the didactic content and the actual theory-based stuff before they come face-to-face with a tutor. And that means that you can get the most out of your time together as a group with a tutor. You can use it for Q&A, you can use it for scenarios, you can use it for testing their understanding of the content, rather than spending your time delivering a lecture that they could be watching from the comfort of their own home, with or without COVID, at a time that suits them, watching the bits that were difficult to get their head around the first time. So the first thing I did was make a tutorial sitting at this desk about local anaesthetics. The goal was to see if we could augment the ability to take in the information by making it more dynamic and involving more styles of delivery. So rather than just voice and words that were static, we were able to have diagrams of things drawing in the screen in real time as I was sketching them out. And as well as that, we were able to start building a kind of sense that Aberdeen Anaesthesia as a department for education is a brand and is something to be proud of. So we built a bit of an online presence with this, and bit by bit we moved through the tutorials. To help us develop this kind of feel of a brand, we put together a package of an animation that drew in the Aberdeen Anaesthesia logo, which is set to the QRS tone sound, which is Callum MacDonald's pulse recorded in the AMH theatre. He had a sinus arrhythmia that made it actually really hard audio to work with. We had a key set of animations for drawing in text and kind of bubbles with extra information that would pop in at the side, and how we would introduce who it was that was speaking to us, so that there was a kind of universal theme across all of the videos. Initially it was just done with smartphones, a single condenser microphone and a couple of DSLRs that trainees had lying around. And we just started to expand it. So after local anaesthetics, there was a tutorial about doing an ABCDE assessment of a critically unwell patient. That was just me against a white wall in the Matty. After that, we got a bit more ambitious and actually filmed a whole simulated scenario of a patient being intubated in theatre with some attention to airway management, things like monitoring and CO2. And it was filmed from multiple angles. We had loads of trainees involved, we had anaesthetic assistants and ODPs from theatre involved, and it became this multidisciplinary project that Aberdeen Anaesthesia was embarking on. The other benefit of this delivery method was that we could get students into places that they can't be when there's a pandemic. So it wasn't possible for students to get into theatre and see somebody be intubated, but they could see a video of that happening. We could also take them into a critical care environment. So Stuart Williams very kindly gave an afternoon of his time to sit in front of a camera and walk us around an intensive care environment and explain what the equipment was, why we needed that much space, what sort of patient goes there, how you make decisions about critical care. Procedural skills in general lend themselves really well to this medium, and we made a video where Jill Austin very boldly let herself be cannulated on film. And that has been really successful and has gone down really well. And I've walked past medical students on labour ward at 2 o'clock in the morning who are doing night shifts and have been asked to go and do a cannula, and they're watching this. They've got Aberdeen Anaesthesia's YouTube channel open on screen and they're watching this and it works. We've done a bit of a test expanding this into some postgraduate education, so Bill Brampton very kindly let us interrogate him on respiratory physiology. And what was interesting is that what would normally have been a 3-hour mammoth session in a small room in the Sutty Centre for primary teaching, we were able to get that down to 45 minutes of absolute gold from Dr. Brampton. And now that it's there forever, and we've been able to add the diagrams in and draw them just the way he asked us to and present the information exactly how we would like, and nobody ever needs to go back and update those slides. Nobody needs to give up another afternoon to deliver that teaching again. So of course we did survey our students. We were really enjoying doing all of this, but if it wasn't going to actually help them learn, then we weren't going to bother continuing with it. Thankfully, the feedback was fantastic. 100% of the students that I surveyed said they wished more of their curriculum was delivered in this way. Half of them found it easier to learn from a YouTube video than anything else they'd tried before. That's textbooks, that's lectures, that's e-learning, anything they'd done before. Half of them thought this was the new favourite, so that's fantastic. And the overwhelming majority of them found themselves rewinding and rewatching bits again to catch the key concepts that were difficult. There is a huge spike in the viewership at the point that Sophie puts a cannula through Jill's skin, because they want to see exactly what angle to put it in at. They go back, they watch it time after time after time, and we couldn't do that on a real patient. So at the time that I presented this in IME, the kind of closing remarks and lessons learned were that this project was in its infancy, but that it was really spreading out across the hospital and going across departments and encouraging and inspiring a sense of multidisciplinary collaboration within the hospital. We've found ourselves creeping into all areas. So Theatre Academy with anaesthetic assistants, student nurses, student ODPs have been benefiting from a video on how to handle a CICO situation. The paramedics who normally would have joined us in theatre for some sessions to get some airway skills, they got a couple of videos made where we talked them through airway management concepts, starting with really basic stuff like a triple manoeuvre, going up to more advanced stuff like intubation. And it's been really lovely to see everyone come together on this. Other lessons are that our experience is very much typical of what the education literature would say. The key rules, if you're delivering teaching online: speak quickly and as if you're interested. If you don't sound engaged, people will just turn it off. If you get beyond 7 minutes, then you're pushing it a bit. If you get to 12 minutes, you might as well switch off. Your viewer engagement tails off the longer your video goes on for, because you can distill so much into a video when you've cut out the ums, the ahs, the pauses, the gaps, the where was I's, that actually 12 minutes is enough to tell just about anybody, just about anything. Include diagrams, have them draw in real time if you can. Anything that's moving, anything that's changing on the screen keeps people's attention. It's the same as having a conversation with somebody who's really flat and speaks really monotone and doesn't move very much, versus if you're actually having a conversation with someone who's interested in you, is giving you eye contact. And that's the final thing. More important than all of that is if they've got eye contact with somebody, even if it's on a camera. So try and get away from relying on your slides and talking over them. Make the conversation the key part of the teaching environment, and that works a treat. And the thing that has really come to light for me is that free open access medical education isn't a new thing now, it's the norm. And it's been really nice to see that get taken on and people rolling with it. And people out with our department have approached us when they've seen this working for Aberdeen Anaesthesia and asked if they can get involved or if we can produce stuff with them or for them. So this has really grown arms and legs. Earlier in the year, we were asked to make a video for Don't Forget the Bubbles, who are a social media platform in paediatrics, and they were looking for a video about how to distract children who are having a cannula. And we were able to present that from Sick Kids, and Kay Davies very kindly went on film to talk us through that, and we were able to make a sort of gimmicky and cheerful little paediatric themed video which went out on Instagram under Don't Forget the Bubbles, whose following is into the tens of thousands. And as it expands, more and more people have got involved to the point that there's now a core group of us who are doing quite a lot of this stuff, although most of it hasn't seen the light of day yet. The question was raised, well, what if we had an actual free open access medical education channel? And so that's being developed, and there's a group of us who are putting that together. And that's targeted really at medical students who are making the transition to FY1. So this project has involved a huge number of people over the past year, especially as it's grown arms and legs. And that's been really amazing, because the more people we've had involved, the more we've been able to produce. But you bring loads of different skill sets in, and so we've gone from a smartphone to something that's really a lot more elaborate and an awful lot more highly produced, and therefore of much better quality. So thanks very much, everybody. I hope that's interesting and useful, and sorry I couldn't be here in person.